Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rock 'Em Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score. Welcome to bye week numero dos. We are taking the week off, at least the team is, getting ready for Oklahoma after getting beat by Alabama. I think it's one of those perfect situations where you need your quarterback to heal up, and he's got a litany of injuries, and everybody just needs some time to chill. Unfortunately, it's chilling after a loss. So everybody's very angry and gnashing of teeth on the internet. Nathan Hurst, how you doing?
Doing great. This bye week not completely mirrors, but seems to sort of mirror last bye week in that we did come off a win against Vanderbilt, but it was a very unsettling win. Now, if we had flipped the schedule and had come off barely beating Vanderbilt this time, we'd feel a lot better because we knew that Vanderbilt was a good team.
Yeah.
But at the time, we didn't know that yet, and so we were quite unsettled at that bye week. Quite unsettled at this bye week for different reasons. But yeah, I'm glad. I'm liking the 2 bye week thing. I wish that was a every year sort of thing, and maybe they want to eventually extend the season a week and give the teams 2 bye weeks a year. It's kind of nice.
It is interesting. It does kind of spread out the inventory of good games. Like it doesn't feel like there's as many happening, which can be either good or bad. But with with teams juggling too, it's just not as dense as it usually is. But yeah, I have no problem with that.
I mean, just give everyone a week 0 game. Yeah. Just start it there and give 2 byes every year. I mean, as they expand, I mean, we got the playoffs, so more teams are playing more games into the year. I mean, the team that wins the championship will have, or even plays in the championship game, will have won or will have played 16 games, which is insane. So maybe that is something that they could do to kind of throw a bone at the folks saying that it's too many games, which it may very well be too many games. And spoiler alert, they're probably not going to stop at 12 college team or 12 playoff teams. So only more and more teams will be playing more and more games every season. So maybe that would be nice.
And you're not going to take inventory away. You're not going to play fewer games. So yeah, extra breaks. Let's make it happen. Or you could play Hawaii every year. That's the other way you can do it. But whatever, to each their own. All right, so it's bye week. There's no game to really preview. We've already talked about the loss last week. There's really no reason to look at that again, you sillies. We don't need to talk about that anymore. This is some time that we can take to remember some dudes. And we're going to remember dudes in a constructive way, because I feel like a lot of the discourse around Missouri football for the past couple of days has been about quarterbacks, managing quarterback rooms. After our last show, the post-game show had a lot of activity on the YouTube. Thank you for that. We appreciate your comments. Try to respond to the ones that I can, if I think they're productive and worth responding to or made in good faith. A lot of, again, gnashing of teeth, a lot of stress, a lot of what I'll call big emotions after this game, which is fine. You gotta work your way through that stuff. But I don't think let me rephrase that. I think a lot of times when we are going through a rough patch, you look back and you think it was better back then. And that's not always the case. And I don't think that's helpful to just say, well, it used to be better then and now it's not anymore. So wham. Let's objectively look at things. Let's talk about what it's like to run a college football program, especially one at Missouri, and what previous coaches have done. So in the effort of remembering some dudes and restructuring our memory, let's take a walk down memory lane. We want to talk about the myth of the backup quarterback. Levi, I don't know if you have like some nice music that you can play here, like do 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 do. Let's go through it, Nathan Hurst. I know you did some research. I did some research. We learned about some dudes. I want to go back and I want to go season by season and how often Missouri fans have seen the backup quarterback and if that dude was ready and any good. I know you started at 2002. For our listeners, I want you to go back with us, and I want you to mentally think in your head, do I remember the backup quarterback for that year? Because I know you remember the starter, but do you remember the backup? Let's go all the way back to 2000. Okay, we're going to start there. That was Larry Smith's last year as head coach. Nathan, I already know you know this because I told you, but listener, do you remember which quarterback in 2000 took the most snaps? Okay, you probably have some names bouncing around your head. Go 3, 2, 1. The snap leader for quarterback in 2000 was Darius Outlaw, quarterback / wide receiver. I believe Kirk Farmer was the declared starter, but he was injured. So you had 3 guys who threw the ball in 2000. Darius Outlaw threw it 225 times for 1,300 yards, 16 interceptions, by the way. That's not great. And then Kirk Farmer threw 102 for 669 yards. 2001, that is Gary Pinkel's first year. Starting quarterback, you probably all remember Kirk Farmer. Backup, of course, was Darius Outlaw. But then you have a Jimmy Doherty, if you remember him, and Justin Gage, who was still kind of moonlighting as a break glass and emergency quarterback, even though he was playing wide receiver. Kirk Farmer took the majority of the snaps, 285 passes thrown. Darius Outlaw threw 81. We need to go past the stats past that, but Hurst, now we're in 2002. This is an established Gary Pinkel program at this point. Like, obviously, he doesn't have all of his guys, but we are out of the Smith era for the most part. We're in Pinkel era. What about the 2002 quarterback room? What do we got?
Well, that's when a young man by the name of Brad Smith kind of crashed onto the scene as the starter. So it was a redshirt freshman. So he redshirted in 2001, but and did not see the field, obviously, because at the time you couldn't play at all if you were going to redshirt. So he didn't see the field in 01. 2002 comes on the scene, wins the job out of fall camp, kind of surprising everybody because Kirk Farmer was still on the roster. Very experienced quarterback. I mean, he'd been the starter for at least 2, if not 3 years ahead of time. So big surprise that Brad Smith beat him out. Had his first opening game where he just absolutely ran all over Illinois, and the rest is history with Brad Smith. So that's 2002. Flip the calendar over to 2003, and a gentleman named Brandon Coleman comes on as a backup quarterback. Kind of in the few snaps that we did see him in his career, seemed like a homeless man's Brad Smith in terms of the type of game that he played. Thankfully, Brad Smith was never suffered any kind of serious injuries in that time. So we saw very, very little of Brandon Coleman in 2003 and 2004. Sonny Riccio was the other backup in 2003 for just a year before transferring out. So 2004, it was just Brandon Coleman as the key backup. We only saw him in the few blowout games that Mizzou had that season. There were very few of them, unfortunately. And then 2005, and another young man by the name of Chase Daniel comes onto the scene.
Yeah.
As a true freshman. So Brad Smith is still starter. He starts in 02, 03, 04, and 05 is his redshirt senior year. Chase Daniel is the incoming true freshman, wins the backup job. Not to the surprise of anyone. He was very, very highly touted out of high school, obviously. Texas made a big last-minute push to grab him. But thankfully for all of us, he kept true to his word and came to Mizzou. And so that brings us up to 2005, and Mr. Chase Daniel is the backup. And
I think we'll stop there because I think this is where a lot of this myth comes from, right? Brad Smith was not injured, or missed time really at any point in his career other than one time when it was against Iowa State. And Missouri was down by a couple of scores against what used to be the Big 12 North kind of hegemon. For a very brief period, they were the guys that you had to beat, the Iowa State Cyclones. And so they were down, and Chase Daniel comes in and rallies the team to win. Okay. I think this is where the myth comes from when they say, well, Gary Pinkel always had a backup ready to go. Number one, you didn't really need him for most years. Number two, the one time that Brad Smith does go down, he gets replaced by who? Chase Daniel. Who is Chase Daniel? Like the quarterback that they designed that offense for, who had been playing it in high school, who goes on to be a Heisman finalist and lead Mizzou to like the best 2 years of offensive football we have ever seen. Okay.
And by far the leading passer in Mizzou history. He's over 10,000 passing yards. He had a 15-year NFL career. So yeah, that's who you're talking about. And those guys, for any program, let alone Mizzou, do not grow on trees.
They don't. But it is a freshman who is brand new to college football, who just happens to be in a system that he already knows, that he's already really good at, and gets inserted into a situation to win a game. That game was in doubt. The Missouri defense was giving stuff up. So Chase won it. Absolutely. Jeff Wolford kicked that field goal. They all ran into the 25. It was beautiful. But like, that's, I feel like, where it started. And that's just such a unique case that is so hard to your point. You don't grow these guys on trees. You don't always have this type of guy, a talented freshman who already knows the system, who can step in and go from day one. So yes, it happened, but it's so rare that you can't really bank on it.
Right, for sure. And to go into that specific game, even we only saw Chase Daniel for any real crunch time minutes in that one game. The Mizzou had fallen down by 2 scores. They were, I would say, it was kind of shutting down what Mizzou was trying to do offensively. Brad Smith wasn't having much success on the ground, which is how he was most dangerous. So they bring in Chase Daniel. Iowa State did not prepare for Chase Daniel in that game. So they're bringing in a guy who they had not had any tape of, who all of a sudden could run that specific offense to its full extent, where he's able to throw the ball all around the yard. Brad Smith, God bless him, as great as he was not the most prolific passer in Mizzou history. So the most accurate, all that stuff. Chase Daniel, completely different look. Caught him by surprise, 3 drives, 2 touchdowns, boom, the game's over. Iowa State had no time to adjust because the game was over all of a sudden. So there's nothing to say that if Daniel came in if Brad Smith hadn't been able to play the next week, that the next team wasn't able to prepare better for a freshman Chase Daniel at that point. So it was amazing. It was an incredible scene, something that I'll probably always remember. I was at that game. It was a great, almost very similar to the vibes of Brady Cook coming out of the locker room and ready to beat Auburn. Yeah. Not quite as dramatic maybe, but just same still kind of like, I can't believe it. This kid's only a freshman. This is going to be amazing. It was awesome. But that's a one game sample size. We had no idea what he would have looked like the rest of the season. And maybe he would have been that good as a true freshman the rest of the year if he had to play any significant minutes, but he did not.
No. And I mean, he had a great game, but Chase Daniel for the year, 38 of 66, 347 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Like, looking at that, you would not have thought that this was the guy. Now, he won the game, but that's not a stat line that pops. So then Brad Smith graduates. It's Chase Daniel's team, 06, 07, 08. It's the Chase Daniel show. The backup in 06 was technically Brandon Coleman still. He was the only other quarterback that threw a pass in 2006, 6 of them, for 13 yards and an interception. 2007, you remember this one, right? The Chases. Chase Daniel's a starter. Chase Patton is the backup. Everybody's favorite dentist. Chase Patton throws 13 passes on the year. That's it. Chase Daniel does not get injured. He does not miss a game. Same for 08. Except this time, not only does Chase Patton come in for 18 passes on the year, but you have a little guy named Blaine Gabbert who's a 5-star out of Parkway, and he comes in and throws 13 passes for 43 yards. That's it. But there is a difference between having a backup that can come in and play and having a backup just that's ready to go. And for the most part, Blaine Gabbert was the heir apparent because this was Chase Daniel's last year. It's good to have the guy to replace the guy. If Chase Daniel was injured, though, Blaine Gabbert was not coming in. It was Chase Patton. And, Patton was fine. He's also a dentist. That's the route that he went. So it was definitely going to be a drop off as far as quality goes, and they just never put him out there. That takes us to 2009. Hurst, why don't you cover the Gabbert years?
Yeah, so 2009 backups for Blaine Gabbert, who was a starter his sophomore year, first year. Jimmy Costello and Ashton Glazer. This is some serious remember some guys territory. I don't have stats on either of those guys. I think Costello was the primary backup in that year. I can't imagine he threw more than 15 or 20 passes that whole
17
season.
To be exact.
Because it was Gabbert's team. And thankfully, in 2009, I guess he did tweak his ankle, but he was able to play on it well enough that he was going to be the better option than Mr. Costello. 2010 comes around, and we have the next, and what Gary Pinkel thankfully had created was a line of incoming freshman quarterbacks that would go on to take on starting roles, and that's James Franklin, was a true freshman in 2010. He kind of did the Pinkel thing where he would come in maybe one series in the second quarter, of every game, at least not all, but the super high leverage games. Though I do remember he might have even scored a touchdown against Oklahoma, number 1 ranked Oklahoma that year, because he was kind of also Frank the Tank, their short yardage back. So they would bring him in on the goal line, but he threw very few passes as the backup, true freshman, but heir apparent to the role as well. So you're kind of noticing a theme, which I think we'll move into. We'll finalize here a little bit later. But Franklin, then in 2011, was starter as a sophomore. Jimmy Costello still hanging out as the backup in 2011. Corbin Bergstresser comes on as well. Another remembered some guys. 2012. Now this is the first time that we see in the Gary Pinkel era a starting quarterback suffer any kind of significant injury where he's required to miss significant time. And in 2012, James Franklin hurt his shoulder. He was kind of in and out and played a little bit and didn't, and missed a game, came back, missed another game. I think he ended up missing 3 or 4 or 5 games that year. So you had to actually lean on your backup quarterback. This is the first time that Pinkel had to lean on his backup quarterback to start games. And that was Corbin Bergstresser in 2012. And it wasn't great. It was not great.
So time out there, because we went through Gabbert and you went through Franklin, and whatever, I'm not going to put any value judgment on this, but Franklin was not going to use any kind of medication for his injuries. He was very much against that. He was all for rehab, but he was not going to take anything to mitigate the pain. And that was his choice.
Beyond ibuprofen and Tylenol. Yeah.
So like, he's not getting the happy shot that Brady Cook got a couple weeks ago. He was not going to take that. And, for Blaine Gabbert, I don't remember the severity of the injury. I know it was bad because he could not run anymore, but he could take enough to mitigate the pain. And Pinkel and staff said, we'll take a 60% Gabbert in 2009 over a 100% Jimmy Costello. And we'll take that every single game. And that was their choice. Franklin kind of took that choice away from, again, not a value statement. He took that choice away from them and said, I cannot do it. I cannot go because of the pain. They had to go to Corbin Bergstresser. And the guy wasn't ready. He wasn't like Franklin. He didn't have his talents. And he was like a second year player, I think is what it was.
Yeah, he was a redshirt freshman at the time.
Yeah.
3-star out of the Kansas City area, I believe. Maybe Liberty, I might be making that up. But Kansas City area. He was not ready for major Big 12 football. Wasn't ready.
No, he absolutely was not. And so this is kind of the first time you see extended use of the backup. And Gary Pinkel did not have a guy to replace James Franklin. Now he has guys in the pipeline if, when they're getting ready to graduate or declare for the draft early, but he had to go to his backup and the backup was not good. So then you get to 2013. And I think this is a second instance of where we go, see the myth of the backup quarterback. So again, James Franklin, he starts the season 100%, right? He's good to go. He has one of the best receiving corps that Mizzou has ever seen. He's got one of the best offensive lines Mizzou's ever had. He's got a defense that is finally coming into its own, nastiest defensive line. It's the most complete team Mizzou has had in quite some time. And James Franklin is the starter. And in fall camp, Matty Mock comes in and beats out Corbin Bergstresser as your number 2. James Franklin goes down. He is injured against Georgia, again with the shoulder. Matty Mock comes in and wins the game, but is not trusted to throw the touchdown pass. But he takes over for the next 4 games and loses a winnable game against South Carolina, but wins all the rest. And for the season, what was he? 2013, 68 of 133. That's right around 50%. 1,071 yards, 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Now, no doubt Matty Mock had the talent to chuck the ball. Like, that's what he did. He was a Leroy Jenkins quarterback. He would deep shot you to death. And he just so happened to have the best deep shot receiving corps Mizzou's ever had to throw to. So it was a perfect situation. And even then, he still lost the game to South Carolina team that Missouri probably should have beaten. And so you see him come in and you go, oh, well, see, Pinkel had He had his backup ready to go. Yes, kind of. It's also a specific skill set that was amplified by this specific roster in the year that Franklin was going to be leaving at the end of anyway. So if you went back a year, I don't have the guy yet because he wasn't supposed to graduate. Next year he's got the guy, and even then, he's very scattershot. But and then we know the Matty Mock show, right? Let's see, who was Matty Mock's backup in 2014? Was it Eddie Prince?
That would have been Bergstresser again and Marvin Zanders in 2014. I believe Zanders was a freshman that year.
Yeah. Well, Mock didn't miss any time, right? That was whatever. And then 2015 happens, and Mock is the starter, and a kid named Drew Lock is the freshman that comes in, wins the backup job. Mock is caught snorting cocaine, gets kicked off the team for just poor choices. And Locke gets turned to and stinks the joint out. He does okay against South Carolina in the first game where there's no tape on him. He does not throw the ball further than 10 yards down the field, has no offensive line to protect him. And then they go on to lose every other game except for BYU and send the Pinkel era out with a whimper. But, Drew Lock was not ready because he was a freshman. They were not ready to lose Matty Mock for all those purposes. So, Hurst, what is the point of this exercise? What have you learned from this?
What I've learned is that Pinkel was really, really good at lining up his heir apparent the year before his current starting quarterback was going to graduate and move on. Really, really good at that. That doesn't mean that he was good at having a reliable, ready to go backup in case someone got hurt. Because the times that it happened, got a little bit lucky with Matty Mock in 2013 because the rest of the team was amazing. It's really easy to throw it deep to LaDainian Washington and DGB and Marcus Lucas, and those guys are going to come down with it more often than not. And the defense was good. The running game was good. A guy named Henry Josie if you might remember that guy, they could lean on the running game really as well. So it made his life a lot easier. That for Matty Mock, got lucky there. He had Mock lined up for the next year because he knew that he was going to need to get him lined up. He had Drew Lock lined up for the next year because he knew that Matty Mock, I guess, would have still had some eligibility, but he didn't plan on kicking Matty Mock off the team. He planned on Matty Mock playing for another couple of years, and then by that point, Drew Lock would have been ready come 2017 when he was very much ready and put up crazy numbers. 2017 and 2018. So that's what Pinkel was good at. And I think people are misremembering or misconstruing what it really looked like when a guy like Matty Mock or Chase Daniel came into the game in those instances where it happened and that actually happened to work out, because that was almost more luck than anything, or the fact that Chase Daniel was the best to ever do it at Mizzou. You don't have more than one of those because then they wouldn't be the best. So that's how that works.
The big injuries, Brad Smith in 2005, for one game, you just happen to have the greatest Mizzou quarterback ever ready to go. James Franklin in 2012, you did not have the guy ready to go. 2013, you did have a guy, just so happened to be the heir apparent to the guy. And then 2015, you were not ready. So you need to have the guy in place, and they have to be one of the best of all time. And to your point, yes, having the heir apparent lined up is not the same as having a competent backup to take over. It's just not. Just got very lucky injury wise that it lined up when most of the time when they had the heir apparent sitting there and ready to step in and go. So it is hard to have a competent backup quarterback on your team in college. This is not the NFL, and that was hard to do in Pinkel's era, let alone the NIL transfer portal era, when guys just, I'm not going to play. See ya. That's how it works. So don't be worried that Drinkwitz doesn't have a competent backup. It typically does not happen. I cited Ohio State last year. You can look at Michigan this year. You can look at really any college football team. Even the elites don't always have the backup ready to go. Like I said, Texas is an anomaly. Do not. We want to be like that, but if you're not, it's not a big deal. I promise. Okay, so we talked about the backups. You want to talk about Eli Drinkwitz quarterbacks? Because that's the other narrative I've been hearing, is that Eli Drinkwitz can't bring in quarterbacks. So let's go back and remember some more dudes. Let's start with Sean Robinson. We remember that guy. He was inherited by Eli Drinkwitz. He committed to Odom. He transferred in from TCU. Eli Drinkwitz starts in the first 2 games against Alabama and Tennessee. Yeah. And then Connor Bazelak takes over. Sean Robinson switches to safety. That's super cool. Then transfers to Kansas State. Then you have Connor Bazelak. We all remember Connor. He came in, relieved Sean Robinson, played all through the 21 year, injured for most of that. I think it's the problem there. And then he transferred to Bowling Green. Okay. So then what? Then we got Brady Cook. We all know Brady Cook. Eli Drinkwitz inherited him from Barry Odom as well. Plays a few games in 20, splits snaps against Georgia in 21, starts the bowl game. He's the starter now. Tyler Macon. Hurst, we have not talked about this. What are your thoughts on Tyler Macon?
I don't think he was ever going to make it here, and I say that because he hasn't made it anywhere else. I couldn't even tell you where he ended up, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it's a bummer. I was really excited when they got him. It seemed like he might have had all the tools based on all the recruiting reports about him. Elite 11, he was great there. It just didn't happen for him here, and I don't think it really happened for him anywhere. So it seems like Drinkwitz was able to identify the guy out of between Cook and Macon, because there was very much a battle between those two guys for the backup job to Bazelak in 01 or 21. It seems like Drinkwitz found, identified which of the two guys was going to be the guy that's going to be the best of those two. So yeah, beyond that, I couldn't say a whole lot because I don't even know what he's doing right now. He's probably went pro in something other than sports by this point.
He is currently a receiver at Alcorn State, and
receiver at Alcorn State. Okay, so he's down a level. He's not even playing the position that he was recruited to play here. No. I hope he's doing great things in the SWAC. Good for him.
He's not. He's barely playing. And I remember somebody asking me this last year, like, whatever happened to Tyler Macon? I was like, oh, he's busy going 1 for 7 at Alcorn State and lost the starting job. Like, here's the thing. The 2021 recruiting class, big old crapshoot. Why? Because of COVID. COVID was the 21 class's senior year, and a bunch of them didn't play. And even if they did play, you didn't get a lot of in-person scouting. Okay. Let's rattle off. How far do I want to go? We'll do top 20 quarterbacks in the 2021. We'll do 247. Here's the top 20 quarterbacks. Quinn Ewers, okay, certifiable Bainer. We know he's at Texas. Maybe not as, ripping everything that we thought he could, but very good.
He will play in the NFL.
Yeah, Caleb Williams in the NFL. The number 3 quarterback in that class, Sam Heward. Could you pick that guy out from a can of paint?
No, I know he was at Washington for a little while, then he bounced around other places, never really got a chance anywhere.
Yep, he's at the FCS level now. Number 4, Drake May. We know that guy. Mm-hmm. Number 5, Brock Vandergriff, currently stinking it up at Kentucky because he can't hit anybody with the football other than the bad guys. JJ McCarthy, okay, went to Michigan, was not asked to ever throw the ball, won a national championship. Great job, JJ. Ever heard of the name Caden Salter?
Yes.
Do you remember where he went?
Originally, no. I know where
originally he went to Tennessee. He is currently at Liberty, and he's doing well at Liberty, but Liberty. Kyle McCord, chased out of Ohio State, not good enough. Guy named Ty Thompson, who went to Oregon, couldn't tell you anything about him. Tyler Buckner, currently a lacrosse player, could not hack it at Notre Dame. Baron Morton, I think might be playing at Texas Tech, but has not held the starting job very well. Eli Stowers, tight end at New Mexico State, now at Vanderbilt. Jackson Dart, we know that guy. He's at Ole Miss. Jalen Milroe, we remember that guy. Miller Moss at SC, we know that guy. He's number 15. Jake Garcia, number 16. We remember Jake. Couldn't beat out a baseball playing Sam Horn. Kyron Jones, who's currently at Virginia Tech. Number 18 was Preston Stone, who got usurped at SMU. Garrett Nussmeier was number 19 at LSU. And then a guy named Bubba Chandler was number 20, committed to Clemson. That's a lot of dudes who didn't end up doing anything. And that's your top 20 quarterbacks, just by the way. That's the 2021 recruiting class. So, point of that exercise was there's some verifiable stinkers in that class because we just had no idea. And Tyler Macon was one of them. I guess from what I understand, he made it onto campus, and like 3 weeks later, the staff goes, "Oh, he doesn't know how to read a defense." Which blows my mind. Because isn't that what do they do at Elite 11 other than just look pretty throwing the ball? What are they supposed to do there?
I mean, they wear their short shorts and prance around and throw the ball really far. I think that's what they do there.
Well, it didn't do him any good. He did benefit from playing at East St. Louis with just some certified dudes that he gets to throw to. That made him look probably a little better than he actually was. But yeah, staff couldn't get him to read a defense. He didn't learn. And he didn't even learn at Alcorn State. You know, he can't even complete a pass down there. So that sucks. But he was very highly regarded. He was a 4-star. He was local. It made all the sense in the world and just didn't work. So that sucks. That is some bad luck. Then we get to Sam Horn. We know Sam Horn, baseball guy. In fact, I would probably blame baseball for Sam Horn, right? If it wasn't for baseball, he would be third year backup. That's kind of ideal if Brady Cook goes down, right? I mean, we've not seen enough of him, but would you prefer a Sam Horn in his third year or Drew Pine in his first year?
Certainly Sam Horn. I would say, though, if it wasn't for baseball, Sam Horn wasn't coming here in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
He probably goes to Tennessee, but Drinkwitz was willing to let him play baseball, and that's why Mizzou got him, because it was down to Tennessee was his other, if I remember correctly, was his other option. Now, does he stick around at Tennessee? Who knows? But if it wasn't for that, he wouldn't have been here in the first place. But if he wasn't injured from baseball, yet he would be right there. And I think everyone's feeling a lot more confident about him just having his third year in the system. Well, really second year in the system with Kirby Moore.
Yeah.
But he's just got the pedigree that Drew Pine doesn't really, and the size and the stature, and you just feel more confident. You see that guy, 6'4" guy, statuesque, standing out in the pocket. That just makes you feel more confident about what's going to happen, even if the production is the same.
Yeah, and the book on Sam is not completed yet. We don't know what's going to happen there. But he has Tommy John, and he's not going to be available until past the spring practice, right? He's going to miss like a full 14 months.
I don't know what his football timeline is. I know that it'll have been 9 months. Here in a couple of weeks will have been 9 months from his surgery, which apparently, based on what Google told me back in January, that's when football players can start safely throwing footballs. That doesn't mean he's ready to get onto the field in November, but he could at least start, stretching the arm out for football, unless he wants to take it the full 12 or 14 months and not throw anything until he starts working on his baseball stuff.
Yeah, might as well. Yeah. So that gets us to Jack Abraham. Father Abraham and his many sons. Jack Abraham was the consolation prize for missing out on Jaden Daniels. Remember when Jaden Daniels was guaranteed to come to Mizzou? Do you remember that brief 14 hours or whatever it was?
I wish I didn't.
That was nice. I mean, well, I don't know what this offense would have looked like with Jaden Daniels as the quarterback. It's not the style that he played at LSU, so who knows how he does or anything like that. But yeah, he ended up at LSU, and Drinkwitz still wanted a guy to challenge Cook, so he went with Jack Abraham out of Southern Miss, and not good. Not good at all. He came in at Kansas State and just stunk out. I think he immediately threw an interception was what happened when he came into K-State.
I mean, the parallels between Jack Abraham and Drew Pine are staggering.
Yeah.
From not only from how they played, but how they look when they're on the field and in the pocket. I mean, if if Drinkwitz has a type for guys, he's gonna fallback guys. I think we found what his fallback guy type is.
Short old dude who can't outrun. That's what it is. And then we get to Jabari Johnson, who's a 4-star out of Washington. Shocked that we got this guy. He comes all the way to Columbia for 1 year and then transfers to Oregon State. I think he's thrown a couple passes there. Looks like he's playing in 6 games and he's thrown 12 interceptions so far. My God. Okay. That's whoops. Okay. Maybe we'll dodge a bullet on that one. Jeez. Wow. Stats are bad. Then we get to Jake Garcia. We talked about him earlier. He was a transfer from Miami. Could not beat out Sam Horn. Wee baby Sam Horn. So he was a third guy and he was not going to stick around. Then we get Drew Pine. Started a few games at Notre Dame, stunk it out at Arizona State. He stinks here. I think we know that one. Aiden Glover, who's a 3-star from Tennessee, freshman. And then you got Matt Zollers, who's still in high school and broke his leg. People were taking this as a referendum on Eli Drinkwitz's ability to recruit a quarterback in a very tumultuous era. I'm still giving him an incomplete. I know he inherited Cook, but the guys that he did recruit, Horn, who's still around, Zollers, who will be coming in, Glover, who's still around. I mean, can we give him a couple more years before we finally determine if he can recruit quarterbacks or not?
Yeah, the sample size is entirely too small and wonky because of COVID, as you said. I mean, look at the guys he brought in. Tyler Macon, 4-star. Now, was that ranking probably way overblown, but largely due to COVID, like you said? Yes, but that's a 4-star quarterback. Then you've got Jabari Johnson or Sam Horn, 4-star. Jabari Johnson, 4-star. Matt Zollers, 5-star. Aiden Glover in there as a 3-star, and he was kind of the fallback as well because they had a different 3-star, Daniel Kalen, who then decommitted and went to Nebraska, and now he may be regretting that decision, but we'll see. Anyway, four of the 5 or 3, no, I can't do math. 3 of the 4 are 4-star guys. Then you got a 5-star guy as the 5th guy who's coming in, and Matt Zollers. You can't argue with the type, the level of player there that he's going after and then landing. Now, has he been able to get those guys to develop and turn out? No, he hasn't done that yet. Sam Horn is still a big incomplete. He hasn't had the time. He hasn't had the time. Tyler Macon, transferred out. Who knows? I mean, he probably wouldn't have turned anything, but we didn't have the time to find out. Sam Horn hurt. Jabari Johnson transferred out. Aiden Glover is a freshman. Matt Zollers TBD. So just has not had the time. And in the transfer portal era, you are not going to have very much time to do that. So this is something that not just Eli Drinkwitz is facing and dealing with. This is not a problem that is unique to Mizzou. Look at Texas A&M. Now they're a little Connor Wegman, Marcel. I'm losing his name. Marcel Reed. One of those 2 players is not going to be on their team next year. It's probably going to be Connor Wegman, and that's a 5-star guy that's all of a sudden going to be in the market for a new job. If he wants to come here, I've got a guest bedroom. He's welcome to stay. But that's what you're dealing with. Even when you have a guy who was projected to be a potentially first, second round draft pick after this year, and Connor Wegman probably will be back in college next year at a different school. So you just don't have the time to deal, and especially if you're a guy on the bench that is showing flashes and has a couple extra years of eligibility, you're going to be more likely to want to squeeze that guy up. Now, maybe not Eli Drinkwitz because he doesn't like to play guys that are young as much. So, but it just the entire landscape is different, and every coach in every program is trying to figure out how to make it work, and. No one has figured it. If someone's told you they figured it out, they haven't. They've just gotten lucky, or they're Georgia and have like 5-star guys on their bench anyway. And Mizzou isn't Georgia, and they're never going to be Georgia. So we have to figure out a different path. And he's trying to figure it out. I'm sure that's number 1, 2, and 3, and 4 on his priority list to figure out how do I get good quarterbacks in the door.
Yeah,
and he probably thinks he's got one coming in 5-star Matt Zollers, who's the number 2 quarterback in the class. Next year.
I mean, one of them is going to hit at some point. You keep throwing 4 and 5 stars guys at the problem. At some point, it's going to work out. It's just you've had Brady. Literally, he inherited Brady Cook first year. Like it took a while to get there, but like that's what he got. And Brady Cook is never going to be a guy who transferred away or jumped early. So it's a very rare situation in our modern game where you got a guy who's 4 years, 5 years almost of playing. So yeah, he's going to figure it out, and he keeps recruiting highly rated guys. And let's give him a chance. Let's let it shake out before we determine if he's good or bad at this sort of thing. But I get why there's frustration. So obviously we've heard that Brady Cook's going to be back. Eli Drinkwitz talked about it today. He said that he's for sure coming back. Did not give us a health of Brady Cook. We don't know if 60% hand, his 60% ankle, 100%, 0%. We don't know, but he's going to play again, or at least he's going to give it a go. Which, if you want to win games, you need Brady Cook. I think we figured that out over the past 2 weeks. But obviously the effectiveness of a Brady Cook is limited by hands and ankles, and we don't know what that's going to be. So when I did my recap of the game, I mentioned at the end that there's basically 3 outcomes. Number one, if you have a 100% Brady Cook, then you can win all these last 4 games on the schedule. You can absolutely win them. Probably will. If you have a 50, 60% healthy Brady Cook, you'll probably win 2. Maybe you could win them all, but it's seriously in doubt if you can win every single one. And then if it was Drew Pine season going forward, I said you win 0. Maybe you win 1, but you're basically winning 0. So now we're assuming that we're eliminating the third one since Brady Cook's coming back. How do you feel about this team with Brady Cook and whatever mystery effectiveness he's going to have?
I feel better than this team with no Brady Cook, 100%, because there's this team still has plenty to play for. So you want them to keep. Obviously, we're Mizzou fans. We want Mizzou to win as many games as they possibly can. And as you said, they are not winning any games without Brady Cook on the field, no matter what his health level is. It's good news. It's unequivocally good news that he's gonna be back on the field this season. Hopefully against Oklahoma next week. Though Drinkwitz was not, and won't be say for sure if he's going to play. He'll be listed as questionable. I can guarantee it. This time next week, when the first injury reports come out, he will be questionable, and then he will be probable, and then he will play on the game. So that's what that's going to look like. It's good news. It's good news. We'll have to wait and see how he looks like against an Oklahoma defense that is very solid, and probably coming in hungry, thinking that they can take advantage of a potentially less than 100% Brady Cook. So they're going to have to get ready for that. It'll be very, very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yep. And I like I said, I am choosing to believe that they did a quick X-ray on Brady Cook, did not like what they saw, and said, "We're saving you for Oklahoma because we're not going to win this game." The second Drew Pine went woo and threw it to the other side. I'm choosing to believe that. Otherwise, I would be sad. So yeah, I hope he can play, and I hope he can win. This Oklahoma and Mizzou, at least online, have been sniping at each other for the past 14 months. This has been the game that we're all like, beat these stupid idiots. It would be a shame to go ahead and then lose this game because Brady's injured and whoever else is too. So it's important. It's an important one. And, Missouri's not playing for the playoff. We talked about this in the last show. I know there's a little bit of hopium getting passed around, like 10-2 SEC team. Like you could do it. Committee's not blind, y'all. They saw the 2 playoff caliber teams they played up, and they lost big time. So I do not think that's going to be the case. But to your point, there's still things that you can play for. You can beat Oklahoma. You can beat Arkansas again. You can win games. But I think the thing that you mentioned offline, and I have thought about, but have not really thought about a lot. Saving this recruiting class. You want to go in a little bit more detail on that one?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, at the moment, the Mizzou recruiting class is ranked number 16 in the nation by 24/7, which is the second best. That if it closes at number 16, will be the second best recruiting class that Mizzou has ever had. in the online recruiting ranking era anyway. So, I mean, it seems like Matt Zollers, Jack Lang, those guys are pretty locked in, and those are two of the top guys in the class. But there are plenty of other 4 and 5, now newly 5-star, minted 5-star Lamont Rogers, and several other 4-stars that are being called every day by other programs saying, "Are you sure you in Mizzou?" I mean, they're crapping out. They're not doing what they thought what they told you they were going to be doing this year. So it's a lot easier to shut those guys up if you still can look at 10-2. The season didn't go as great as we wanted it to, but 10-2 is 10-2, and 21 and if I can do the math, 21-4 in the last 2 years is 21-4 in the last 2 years. That's outstanding. That goes a really long way. So we're talking about Lamont Rogers, but now 5-star offensive lineman from Dallas. We talked way back in the summer when we got his commitment, what much of a coup that was. Mizzou doesn't pull 4-star, now 5-star linemen out of Texas. Texas A&M very much wants Lamont Rogers, and he was in the stadium for the LSU Texas A&M game last Saturday night. And I watched that game. And they've got a lot of NIL money to throw around. So that is a big time concern. Whether or not Mizzou goes 10-2 or not, holding on to Lamont Rogers would be a major, major coup. Donovan Olubide, he 4-star receiver from Florida, from IMG Academy, which has 20 scouts in their door every single day from the top programs all over the country, just because of the amount of talent that comes out of that school. So that he's getting whispers in his ears from everybody who needs a receiver, who wants a receiver, because he's a really good one. So, I mean, and then you can just go down the list. I mean, outside of the in-state guys that you feel pretty good about, and Zollers seems very locked in, so I'm not really worried about him, to be honest. But everyone else could be fair game if you start losing 2, 3, 4 more games to close out the season. And then even looking farther ahead, the number 2 player in the entire country in the 2026 class is a Missouri resident, Jackson Cantwell.
Yep.
He's a offensive lineman. He is a monster, 6'8", 300 pounds, can easily put on 50 more pounds and probably still not look too big. He is a Mizzou legacy. His father is a silver medalist, Christian Cantwell, who was a shot putter at Mizzou. He lives down in Nixa, and it seems like he's very interested in Mizzou, but he's also very interested in Georgia. And it's Georgia has a heck of a lot more to sell if Mizzou isn't going 9-3, 10-2 this year. So even beyond this year's class, there are more wins in the recruiting trail to be had, but you can't just tank the year and then hope to regain ground somehow in the offseason.
Yeah, it's all optics, man. You sell hope at the beginning when you're building the program, and you can't be wrong, right? Even if you lose games at the beginning, like, look, we're putting something together. We're putting something together. You got to be. You're gonna be part of it. You're gonna be coming in at the ground floor. You sell hope at the beginning. Now you're 4 or 5 years in. Now you have to sell proof, not only for your job but for recruits. The promises and the pie in the sky goals that only gets you so far if you're sitting at 7 wins. And you had 11 win season and everything else is 6 and 7. Like that's not going to cut it. It's just not. So yeah, do it for recruiting. Something that Mizzou fans don't always get to enjoy, but now we do with this coach. You talked about Lamont Rogers. Like that's a big one for me. I want to keep him too. I'm also worried about Henry Fanuku, who's also from Texas. Like to keep that guy around. Josh Lewis, like to keep that guy around too. A lot of talented dudes in this class. And yeah, you mentioned the local guys are probably not a concern, but Jamarian Morrow out of Memphis, Tennessee, 4-star running back. Jason Dow, I guess, is probably local from Belleville, but just all of them, man. Dante McClellan, my favorite, the outside linebacker from Ohio. Win games, keep him interested, show him that you can do stuff. You can sell scheme to a certain extent, but again, you have to sell proof. And it's important. So all is not lost. Even if you're not in the playoff, you show them that you've gone, like you said, 21-4 or 27-4, whatever it ends up being. Man, that's impressive. There's not a lot of teams that are doing that, especially in kind of your more super conference heavy era of the sport. It goes a long way. So it's definitely worth pursuing and winning games. Obviously, we want them to win, but you got to keep the recruits interested too.
And
I guess
beyond that,
go ahead.
Beyond that, 10-win seasons do not grow on trees in Columbia, Missouri.
No.
There have been 7 of them in the entire 124, 23-year history of the program. 7 of them. And 6 of them have come in the last 17 years. But an 8th 10-win season is a big deal for this program.
Yeah.
Even 9 wins. I mean, there's only been 9 9-win seasons in the entire program history, which is kind of weird to think to be 7 and then only 9. If we win 9 games, we typically win a 10th game. But even if they got to that 9-game mark, that'd just be the 10th time in history that Mizzou has had that many games. So that's a big deal. If you're holding your head down as a fan because they didn't make the playoff this year, it still can be a special season because 1 of 8 in history is a special season.
Yeah. And your back half of the schedule is still tough. We were talking about in the offseason, the first half was obviously going to be the easiest. The second half was the toughest, just with all the road games and the caliber of opponent. This backstretch, though, was the trickiest. Even now, everybody does one thing really, really well and can absolutely beat you with that one thing, right? Like Oklahoma is defense, just defense in general. The offense, everybody's dead on offense. They're not going to scare you or anything. They fired the OC, but that defense can beat you. South Carolina, their defensive line can beat you. I think they have enough pass rush, an NFL caliber pass rush. They can just lean on that. Just pull the Mizzou from 03 to 09. I'm just like, oh, we got a defensive line. Let's go win some games. And they are doing it. They are threatening to win games with just that alone. Mississippi State is just a tricky scheme. They're throwing it all over the place. They're moving warp speed. That can catch somebody, napping or slow, especially on the road when Eli Drinkwitz can't win a game. And then Arkansas is just competent offense now. Are any of these teams good? Are they the top? I mean, they're probably top 30 in SP plus, but they're not unbeatable, but you got to win them. And even if they are a little bit one note or more limited than the previous 4 teams, like you can win, you can get to 10, but it requires some effort and you can do it, especially with the Brady Cook on the field. So it is worth staying invested. It is worth continuing to show up. I saw Mizzou sold out the Arkansas game. Is that right? So it's a sellout for the year. Congratulations, everybody. We did it. Show up to the game. Be loud. You can win at home. So at least show up for those. Just off the top of your head, if you're going to power rank these last 4 games, what is the most likely to be a win? What is the least likely to be a win?
I would say most likely will be Mississippi State, just because they're bad. Even if it's on the road, their defense is really, really bad. And they'll put up some points, but they can't stop a nosebleed. So that'll be number 1. Number 2, actually, I think I'm going to put it Oklahoma is going to be number 2 because they're so one-dimensional. If you can score 20 points, then you're going to win that game. As long as you're not giving them the ball multiple times on turnovers, you can win that game. Then 3 would be Arkansas, and then 4 would be South Carolina. Being on the road, they don't have a very good offense either, but their defensive line is almost as scary as Texas A&M's is, and we saw how that game went. So those are all winnable games. A game at South Carolina is not an unwinnable game. It'll be a difficult game, not one that I probably won't expect to win going in unless we see something significantly different looking next week against Oklahoma. I'm not going to expect to win that game, but it's winnable.
Well, that's basically how I rank them too. Obviously your home games are most likely to be won, and road games not so much. But Mississippi State's bad enough where you could feel confident about that, which means Mizzou will probably gack it away in extraordinarily frustrating fashion.
That's one of the other teams they haven't beat yet.
It is.
We knocked off Auburn this year. Let's add Mississippi State to the list.
Knock off Auburn. You miss Alabama. Let's go 2 for 3 on the can't beat them scale. Let's get it. But yeah, we're no games this week. You can just take the time off and enjoy other games. I hear that they play other college football games outside of Missouri Tigers. What do you got? You got any games this week that you're going to watch, or you got plans that you're going to be?
I'll be camped out for the Ohio State Penn State game at 11 o'clock
There you go.
on Saturday. That one will be really good. No other major plans. I might enjoy a beverage or two. Stress free. That's the nice thing about bye weeks is you can't lose those games, so there's no need to be stressed.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to go vote on Saturday. It'd be a good time to do that. You're not tailgating. Well, you can tailgate if you want, but like there's no pressure. There's nothing that's going on. Go tailgate, and vote. Tailgate the voting line. But that's a good time to do it, especially if you work during the week and your employer does not give you time off. Good time to do it, especially if you're in Missouri. No excuse ballot, absentee ballot. You can go ahead and knock that out, and then you can get your sticker, and then you don't have to worry about Tuesday standing in line and all that sort of stuff. So you can do that, or just classic pumpkin patch kind of weekend. Go drink some cider, go enjoy the fall weather, the unseasonably warm fall weather, but the leaves are still falling, so it's pretty. But yeah, it's a good weekend to step away from football and just enjoy life before we get into the backstretch of the next 4 toughest games and most important games of Mizzou's season. But that is going to be the show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. You can leave a comment or you can rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nate G. Edwards. He's at Burst of Hearst. And of course, you can follow the Rock M flagship at Rock M Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rock M Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
ZOU.